Hello, everyone, and thank you to join us in the Essential of Project Management with Ismael Essackjee today. Definitely, this session will be enriching for all of us, and it's going to be fun as well, because there's an interesting case study coming up. Without wasting any time, I hand over to Ismael. You may begin.
Okay, so welcome each and everyone, and it's going to be an interesting session, hopefully for all of you, because project management, what I'm going to share is going to be like an overview, the essence of project management, but I'm interested in giving you maybe some tips about how you can use this technique in everyday life. I'm going to try my best and let's see how it goes. So welcome and let's get started in project management. So those who don't know me, I'm Ismael, and I think I've been doing a few maybe presentations for IET on campus lately. But today I'm going to use my PMP, okay, Project Management Professional. I'm certified by the Project Management Institute of the US. And actually it is a body, okay? Project management is not like a subject in itself. We have a body which regulates not only one body, we have 3 bodies actually across the world who regulate project management knowledge. Okay, we have PMI from the US, and you have another organization in the UK as well. And we have another one that actually regulates different countries. You know, like IEEE and IET, we have one in the UK and one in the US, but similar to project management. Okay, similarly in project management field, we have organizations which regulate so that we are not running in different directions and so on. We have a structure, okay, which I'm going to put forward to you. We have ways by which we proceed, and it is not like embedded in concrete. It changes with time. That's what makes it so interesting. It's not like Ohm's law, which is not going to change maybe by the end of time. And there are laws, there are rules, there are some techniques which are being improved with time. And this is what makes it so interesting. So let's get started. Oh my God, already it's dinner time. So as I was telling you, we are going to just have an overview of the essence. That's what the title is, Essential of Project Management. Okay, we are just going to get the perfume of this biryani. We are not going to have maybe the whole dish tonight, unfortunately. Because when I teach project management, it is like the 15 weeks setup, okay, for 3 hours each session, like 45 hours for you to be able to understand it completely. But what I'm going to give you most probably, if your takeaway is ready, maybe don't use the polystyrene one, use one which is biodegradable, get your takeaway ready. I'm going to give you at least not only the perfume, but at least one takeaway which can be so useful for you. And even at this point in time, we are readying dinner time. So let's get started. So the project construction cycle. Let's take a small example, okay? How's a client, so we have different, what we are going to term as stakeholders in project management. Yes, we have stakeholders. So who are stakeholders? They are people who can affect the project or who can be affected by a project. A client is part of these stakeholders, okay, what we call let's call that the brand of stakeholders, the group of stakeholders. So a client is part of this. So he's going to provide you with what or his or her requirement. I need this, 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 and so on. So he's going to describe it in his own terms. It's up to us as project manager, as engineers or whatever, we need to be able to know, to go maybe to ask questions, to maybe have some prototypes and so on work so that we check whether his understanding, his requirement are being fully understood by us. And what we are understanding is what the client actually wants. So just we can call it a cartoon for us to just understand why most projects across the world are termed as failures. Okay, this is how the client actually describe it, how the architect envision it. Okay, he may be having different ways of having a look. Okay, we have a few slides coming up later to tell you, to explain to you how to get to the root of the requirement of the client. How the engineer designed it, okay? How the budget allowed, okay? Budget is always constrained to project management. How the liability insurance agent describe it, oh my God. How the estimator bid it, so different people, they can be project team members, they can be stakeholders as we describe it. They are forming part of this chain. It's not only 1 or 2%, it's a whole chain, it's a whole process, and many people are getting involved, and the understanding are different. That's why I make project management so not maybe challenging. It's not like difficult, it's challenging, but if we get the correct tools and technique, we are going to do the work correctly. How the manufacturer made it. I'm just going to move my cursor here. What the building inspector expected, how the contractor installed it, what the customer really wanted. Okay, this is the last picture which I've just shared. This is what the customer really wanted. Okay, but this is, remember the first one, how he or she described it. Okay, two different things. Okay, and how the project was documented, so important nowadays. So project management, it is wide ranging. Let me tell you right from the beginning, you may be working in software industry, you may be working in construction project, engineering, hard engineering, you may be from the science subject as well. If you need whatever, we're going to define what is a project a short while after that. So it's going to apply in everyday life. Well, this is what I can tell you. I use project management techniques for dishwashing as well. Okay, you will tell me how. We are going to come back to that, hopefully, if we have time. So we need to document, especially when you're having construction project or even software project, documentation of software. You know how to write some comments and so on in your code, so that when you're coming back to that, maybe at a later stage, if you need to debug it, or if someone else is having a look at your programmation, he or she can understand what you have been doing with your lines of code. How the customer was billed. Okay, this is for the billing, this is for the expense that the customer needs to pay. So now what we need to know, the critical percentage is only 26% of projects actually succeed across the world. The source is PMI. PMI is Project Management Institute, the one who has like certified me for project management professional. Okay, so we have so many projects. So we have heard about road projects, highway projects, the construction of the airport terminal. All these are big projects, but we have smaller projects as well. Okay, installing a traffic light is a project. We're going to define what is a project, so that we can. Why is it so important to define a project, to know what is a project? Because we have two main ways by which we can separate what we call activities. So some activities in our everyday life, which can be termed as project. There are some which are termed as operations. We have techniques which we use specifically for projects, and we have techniques which we use specifically for operations. That's why it's so important to understand first whether we are going to categorize this as a project or operation. Then we can use the most appropriate tool. So if we have a screw, we can't use a hammer to bring down the screw. We'll need to look for a screwdriver. This is what the tools and technique is. We need to be able to select the most appropriate tools for our use. Now, okay, we have been talking about projects. So what is a project? What is the definition of a project? It is given as a temporary endeavor to, so what is, let's stop here. A temporary endeavor. So it is an effort, it is an activity which is temporary. Temporary, we have two words by which we can like characterize temporary. We have a start date and an end date. This is what we call temporary. We have a start and an end as an end date. So it is a temporary endeavor to produce a unique product. It is not about producing maybe bread every day, which is going to be this is what we term it as operations. It's going to be products coming out, like similar products on the go. Okay, it is ongoing operations. So we are going, as project, we are going to produce a specific, a unique product. We are talking about product because we can touch it, but it can also be a service or results. This is the definition which PMI gives us for what is a project. Next. So generally projects, how do we characterize project? What do they include generally? First of all, developing a new product, service, or result. So it may be coming up with a new product, like maybe constructing a house, constructing a software, not constructing, maybe building, writing codes for a specific project or a program. It can be effecting a change in the structure, processes, staffing, or style of an organization. You may be having like we took the example of the bread, you are producing bread. We used to be maybe setting up the stage in specific location, maybe the flour getting in, the ovens were here, and then we were selling bread at the other end. Then we effected a change in the organization. We wanted to have like a location optimization. We say, okay, let's make it like a chain. We are going to move the oven to here. We are going to place the flour, which is coming in here. And then we are going to sell maybe at the back of the building. So this restructuring in itself is a project. But then after we have set up, we have changed the layout. This is a project. As soon as it is completed, remember we have a start date and an end date. As soon as this is completed, operations is going to take over. Bread manufacturing is going to come up again, and this is going to be everyday basis. This is what we call operations. So we have set up tools for each of these. Developing or acquiring a new or modified information system. So we were speaking about maybe physical processes, physical maybe product. It works as well for information system. If you are modifying your system, maybe you have been using Windows XP. Now you want to use a new Windows. So shifting to the new Windows, okay, shifting from XP to the new Windows is going to be a project. Maybe updating your database, updating your hardware, each and everything. So this is going to be a project, but as soon as it is set up, you are working. Now it is no longer a project, it's going to be operations. Conducting a research effort whose outcome will be aptly recorded. So a research, I guess you are doing, or you will be doing projects in your final year. This is going to be a project as well. Why? You have a start date, you have an end date, a deadline, which keeps on moving most probably. And then you have a specific product, a unique product. If it is not unique, it's going to be plagiarism. Okay, I think you can all relate to what I'm saying. So your project, final year project, is going to be like a what we call a term project, and you can use some of the tools and techniques which we are going to see today for that. Constructing a building, I think we talk about this one. Implementing, improving or enhancing existing business processes. I think it's similar to what we said about changes in processes as well. So we understood now what is a project, start and unique product. So what is project management now? It is an application of knowledge. We need to understand skills. We have some skills which we need to get as project managers, as effective project managers. We need to get some skills, and then tools and technique. We need to apply all these. So we have knowledge, skills, tools and technique to project activities. We have a set of activities so as to meet the project requirements. Remember the requirements from the client at the beginning? We need to be able to meet. He or she was telling us, I want this. Will we be able to give him or her the requirement? Are we going to meet his requirement? We are going to see. So we need to use all these, what we are going to learn today, to be able to do that for effective project management. So what is maybe the overall picture, how it works? So we have different stages, which we call process group. Okay, I'm going to use the technical terms, but most important for you, as maybe it's a first or a new skills that you are going to learn today, just understand the underlying principles. It's going to be much easier. It's going to be more helpful for you. But if you are used to project management, you can get some of the new terms as well. So we have the process group. They are going to interact. We have a initiation part. We need to initiate a project. So processes perform to define a new project. How do we define? Okay, this is where we are going to collect requirement. We are going to see, okay, you mean to have maybe a bench or a table. What do you mean by table? What height? what size, what color. Okay, we are going to get the requirements. We are going to say, okay, what is your budget? When do you need this table? After 5 years, after 2 years, tomorrow? We are going to start defining the requirements from there. Planning, then we have requirements getting in. We need to plan. How do you proceed? How do you work out the cost estimate? How do you work out the timeline? This is a planning stage. Not only we have discussed about the scope, which is a requirement, the cost, the time, but we have a lot more that we need to consider as well. Execution, okay, so we have the planning, then we're not going to remain on a plan. We need to put that into practice. So complete the work as defined in the project plan. We have the plan, but we need to execute the plan at one point in time. In between, we have monitoring and control. Are we on track? Are things progressing as they should be? Okay, we are going to have monitoring and control to check and verify whether things are going as per plan. Or if there are changes, there may be changes when we are going to do execution. Things may change, maybe some requirements have changed, assumption has changed, so we will need to adapt to the situation. Adapting is when we are having a look at the hard project management, the traditional one, they don't like to adapt too much. Why? Because adapting, or what we call changes, they are going to add cost to the project. They are going to change the timeline. They're going to extend the timeline. So they put much emphasis on the planning stage to be able to get as far as possible all the requirements right. But definitely there is 1%, small percentage of uncertainties, which we call risk. So we are introducing another knowledge area, which is risk, that we need to take into consideration, and we are going to show you that later. We need to integrate, we need to factor in all these to be able to plan correctly. And then we have the closure. Finalize all activities across processes, that is close a project, and party as well. It's important to party at the end of the project, okay? And documentation as well is so important. It's going to happen throughout all these process groups, but at the end, when we are closing the project, we need to ascertain that we have documented the project correctly. And we are all human beings, we are all project managers. We are going to learn from our mistake. If we do the mistake once, we need to learn from the mistake, and then we need to document it in such a way that what we call the lessons learned. So that someone else coming after, okay, they are going to have a look at the document. They are not going to step into the same set of mistakes that we have been doing. This is like an ongoing process, which we call PDCA cycle. Okay, we are going to introduce that. We are going to like a continuous improvement. It's not going to be like every project to do the same set of mistake. So it's no longer a mistake. Okay, it is insanity if I take it from Einstein. Okay, once it's a mistake. If it is repeated several times, it's no longer a mistake, it is insanity. Okay, failing to plan, we start with planning. Failing to plan, as you know, is planning to fail. Or it may be failing to plan is part of the plan as well. Okay, if you're planning to fail, it is part of the plan as well. Let's get started. We said that it is an application of knowledge and skills. Remember the skills. As a project manager, you need to develop skills. We have had a session previously on leadership. Remember the different techniques that we have learned about leadership. Team building, we need to build a team. We can't work on a project by ourselves. We always need to have a team around us, okay? Motivation, we need to motivate our team. Communication, we are going to cover part of it, but we have had a specific maybe session on communication, maybe during the presentation skills, is your next interview, not is your next presentation. Okay, we discuss about communication a bit there. Influencing, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Decision making, okay, being able to take decision, how to take, this is another course in itself. Do we take, as a project manager, we just say, okay, let's paint that blue, let's paint that red. Is it a part of decision making, or we need to consult with our stakeholders? Negotiation, at times not everything works as per set criteria or the planning. There are maybe uncertainties which crop up. COVID-19 is one of the uncertainties. How do we work? We need to negotiate with our suppliers. We need to negotiate with our contractor. So it's part of the role of the project manager. Trust building, we need to build trust. Okay, else everything needs to be done on paper. At times with a phone call, things need to be done, and then you may follow up maybe later on with an email. Political and cultural awareness. Why have I included that here? One thing may be acceptable in one country, okay, which is not acceptable in some other countries. For instance, if you're working in some countries, they may be offering you as a project manager a gift. In Mauritius, if as a project manager you get a gift, it is called a bribe. Okay, so it is a cultural things to do there. To give maybe the project manager something that he's going to use, or I don't know what. It's not going to be like money and so it's going to be like an item. It is part of the culture over there. But in your country, in our country, in Mauritius, it's bribe, so it's not good. So you need to be able to understand that and navigate through these things. Okay, so cultural awareness is so important. Conflict management, and then we have coaching as well. Just to go quickly over these. So we said that only 26% of projects are success. But what do we mean by a successful project? First, it is delivered as promised. Project produce all the stated deliverables. I was looking for a one-story building. You completed the project, you gave me only the ground floor. It's not completed. So it's not a successful project. If you specified a specific functionality in the software, okay, maybe to be able to record Zoom, but I can't record. So this is no longer a fully set. Maybe some of the requirements have been met, but not all of the requirements, but because the deliverables have been met. A successful project is completed on time. Time is an important factor, one of the main factors actually. If you're planning for, let's call that the Olympics, or what we have in our country is Jeux des Îles. Okay, let's say the opening ceremony is going to be on 15th of February. So your stadium where you have planned it needs to be available on that day. You can't say, but I had rains a few days. Okay, we had COVID-19. So we can't, so people are here, people have flown from each and everywhere. Okay, just let's forget for COVID for the time being. People are here, all your guests are here, but your stadium is not ready. So it doesn't work this way. So you will need to be able to provide to work properly on your schedule to be able to complete on time. For your project, final year project, you have a deadline. Okay, if you submit beyond this deadline, you're going to lose marks automatically. So how do you work maybe backward, or you work, but we are going to show you later on a specific structure to be able to complete your project on time. So meeting the requirements, completing on time, budget. Budget is so important. Okay, maybe this highway was supposed to be costing, I don't know if it is 1 lane or 2 lane, 3 kilometers or 6 kilometers, let's say 100 million rupees. But at the end of the day, it cost 300 million rupees. It ended on time. It was completed on time. It met all the requirements. 2 lane going up, 2 lane going down. I don't know. The crash barriers, the street lighting, everything is there. All the requirements have been met. It finished on time. But then it was 3 times more than was expected, that was planned. So this is a failure. It is not like a successful project. Quality. So we have a specific part of the presentation. We are going to discuss about quality. So project deliverables met all functional, performance, and quality specification. We are going to define what is quality. It may appear good, but then is it going to be you when you're going to use it? Is it going to be as our expectation? Okay, quality is related to expectation, to usage. Are we able to use it properly? At times, quality and grade, we are going to have a look at quality and grade coming from China. You have different quality, different grades, and so on. We are going to just touch on that later on. Achieve original purpose. The project achieves its original goals, objective, and purpose. Remember the first set of slide where you have the swing, the client requirements, and then each and everyone trying to understand it in their own way. So the main goal was for the client to be able to swing. Okay, maybe for his kids or himself or his wife. Okay, have it been achieved? This is purpose. You can complete a project, but then it is not working. It is on time, but it is not achieving the primary goals. This is linked to the correct understanding of the requirements. Okay, successful project, again, meet all stakeholder expectation. It's only if we have the client, yes, maybe one of the most important stakeholder. We have someone who is at time it is a client who is financing, which we call a sponsor, but we have different expectations from different stakeholders. Let's take an example of the Metro Express project. When it was excavating, it was cutting down the trees on Robert, I don't remember the track, okay, where people were jogging there, Roller Ormond track. So these people living nearby, they are stakeholders as well, because remember what we meant by stakeholder, they can affect or they can be affected by the project. So they were affected by the project, okay? So are we meeting the expectation? Okay, they were using this area, this where we have constructed a metro truck. They were using that for jogging, for exercising, and so on. So how has maybe Metro Express Limited, I'm just taking it from me, been able to maybe satisfy part of the expectation? They have constructed the Eben Recreational Park nearby. So people nowadays, they can, maybe those living in the area, they can just shift to the Eben Recreation Park. You have tracks, you have playground, you have so many interesting things over there. And maybe, okay, they have been able to fill up this missing link that people had, those living in the region of the Metro Express. So we need to meet stakeholder expectations, not only the client or the sponsor who is going to finance the project. We have different stakeholders whom we need to satisfy as well as in terms of the project. Successful project. Okay, we are meeting the requirements. We are finishing it on time, on budget, satisfying stakeholder requirements. Yes. So what's going to happen next? Your manager is going to give you another project, less time and less budget. So it's not always good to be able to complete the project within the set guidelines. Okay, because what we usually say, the outcome, the result of hard work, okay, of successful work is more work. Okay, so they're going to restrict it maybe for the time being. This is maybe a joke, but it is partly true as well. So let's have a look at the areas. We have had a look at the skills which are required. Remember the sets of skills, leadership, communication, and so on. Now, what are the areas of interest? We have the stakeholder. We mentioned about stakeholder. We define stakeholder already. So it is part, we call that the knowledge area of project management. We have 10. Stakeholder. Scope, let's link that with a requirement. So let's call that for us, the requirement management, how to collect the requirement, how to digest that properly, how to ask questions to make it clear to each and everyone. Scope management. We have time or schedule, the human resource, or we can call that the resource management. So previously we had human resource, which was about people. Nowadays we have the PMI have put it maybe largely, have taken it widely, where there may be machinery getting in, logistics getting in. So it's term resource management nowadays, just only human resource. Cost, we mentioned about cost. Quality, we just talk a bit about quality. Communication, so important in project management. Risk management. Procurement, I'm just going to cover, I think, 3 slides. I'm not going to go into details in procurement, but for the sake of understanding, having a global picture of project management, I'm just listing all the different areas of interest, which we call the knowledge area. So we have procurement, and then we have 9. What is the 10th one? Okay, it is integration. They are not working in silos. Okay, we are not going to have someone who is going to wear blinkers, just like horses. I'm going to focus only on cost management. I'm going to focus on you. No, we don't work like this nowadays. We work like around the table. We discuss. That's why we have another knowledge area, which we call integration management. We are going to integrate all of these so that we are on the same plane. We are having a look at the same picture. Okay. Quickly now, stakeholder management. We talk about that. We're just going to rush through that because we have limited time. Who can be stakeholders? This is the most important part. Okay, it may appear, oh, why do I need to look for stakeholders? Because they can affect your project. Remember from the definition, They can be affected, yes, but they can start maybe blocking the road there. They are being affected. Okay, they can't reach their homes, they can't park their cars, they are affected, they can put maybe a case in the Supreme Court against you. So who are the stakeholders? Who are those people when we are implementing a project we need to gather, we need to collect requirements from them? We have the regulators. So it can be one or all, depending. I'm just giving you a few ideas. Environmental partners, community groups, okay, local authorities, contractors and suppliers, and media. Okay, you need to get MBC on, Radio Plus, Top FM, Radio One. Did I miss someone? I don't know. Okay, so all of them, investors, employees, customers. You can have more. Okay, so get them on board to know the requirement. So stakeholders, I think we defined that. Important stakeholder management is critical to the success of every project, because if you forget about an important stakeholder, it may backlash against you later on. Okay, so try to get each and everyone on board. At times, there are some stakeholders we can't give like focused attention to each and everyone, but we need to cater for them. There are some who maybe we just need to give a pamphlet. Okay, we are just going to excavate. When are we going to start? When are we going to stop? The work are going to be completed. So what do they get? We are going to resurface the whole road for you. Remember, you had a few of those holes in the road. We are going to resurface that for you. And in the meantime, you won't be able to park your car, but we have clean a small space over there. We are going to put someone who is going to watch over your cars, and it's a safe place. You're going to have your cars, and don't worry, every morning someone is going to wash your car. So every day you have a clean car going to work. So you have managed stakeholder requirement on some of these requirements. So these also maybe the public. So as I said, you can't manage all. You have so many stakeholders, but it is important to know each and every one. Okay, so we are going to categorize that in terms of interest and influence. So we have a 2x2 matrix, which you are going to see. So we have those who, okay, low interest. This one is low interest and low influence. So they have low influence. They're not going to stop your project as such. So they have low influence and low interest in the project. So regular minimal contact. Maybe put an advertisement in the newspaper, just keep them informed. So as we go, we have those with high interest, but low influence. So keep them informed completely. Just keep them, send them letters that we are doing that. We have read that status report and so on. There are some anticipate and meet their needs. What do they need? What are the requirements? Just meet their needs. And then there are some who have high interest and high influence. Most of our focus should be on these stakeholders, manage most thoroughly. So all our focus, 80% of our focus should be on these type of stakeholders. Okay. As we mentioned before, in our previous training on Pareto principle, 80-20 rule, we are going to use that. We are going to focus 80%. No, we are going to focus, 80% of our time. Okay. And so as to get to know what are these stakeholders who needs more attention. Okay. No, I think it should be the other way around. We are going to focus 20% of our time to be able to satisfy 80% of the stakeholder. We are not going to focus too much. We need to select these 20%, okay, as in the quadrant that we have seen, last quadrant. Then we are going to focus 20%. We are going to satisfy 80% of problems. Actually, a lot of stakeholders, they are here. If you are not meeting their needs, they are going to create problems. So by satisfying 20% of these stakeholders, we are going to meet 80% of problem. We are going to eliminate 80% of problem which can crop up. So we mentioned about the Pareto principle. Basically, we say that 20% of input means 20% of output. This is expectation, but reality means that we can have 20%. We use 20% of our efforts to meet 80% of output, to get 80% of output. So we apply that here. We look for these 20% of stakeholders, which are so important. They have high influence, high impact on our project. We meet the expectation. And then they are going to satisfy 80% of, so going to eliminate 80% of problem, which could have crop up later. Okay, so mention about that I'm just going to rush through that. 80% of your phone calls or 20% on people on your favorite contacts. Okay. 20% of the road handle 80% of traffic. 80% of meal in a restaurant come from 20% of the menu. I've already told you this story about Pareto. So if you have not attended the previous session, go Google that, learn about Pareto. It is one of the fundamentals and most powerful rule or principle that is applicable nearly everywhere in life. Okay, so we discussed about the first one, which is stakeholder. So get to know who are those people who can affect your project. Okay, and now let's say for your final year project, maybe the one who is going to bind your final year report. Maybe I don't know if you still use hardbound cover. Okay, if still, yes, you need to look for who is going to do that. Maybe inquire with him, how many days in advance do I need to give it to you? Or you just expect I'm going to come after 1 hour, I'm going to get my hardbound. It doesn't work that way. So he's part of the stakeholder that you need to get involved and then get the information, get the requirements from him. Then you can plan when you're going to complete your project. If you're going to go somewhere and print, how much time is going to take? Get all that. These are stakeholders that you need to get on board. Okay, so first knowledge area was about stakeholder. Let's move to scope requirement. What did I say? Scope means requirements. Okay, from scope, the technical term is scope, but for us, let's call that requirement. So what is the definition for scope? Ensure that all the works required and only the work required to complete the project are taken care. Okay, so defining and controlling what is and what is not included in the project is not only to find out, okay, this one should be on board, this one should be on board. I need to cater for that, but you should also consider asking, do you think you need this part, this facility, this feature in this software? Do you need maybe to, maybe for your final year project, do you need only the hardbound copy or you need to write your name and so on? Don't assume. If you allow me, I'm going to give you a definition of assume. So what is assume? Let me write it down. Okay. So what is assume? It's making an ass of you and me. So never assume. In project management, we never assume. We are going to make an ass of you and me. So ask question. We have an example which is coming up just after that. So what is in, what is out? Here it is. We have an office manager and a contractor. The office manager says, not only did you paint my office walls blue, but you painted the ceiling blue as well. So the office manager had requested the contractor to paint the office. So instruction were like this, most probably, paint my office blue. Then the manager left. The contractor started his work. When the office manager came, even the walls were painted blue as well as the ceiling. So what does the contractor say? You asked me to paint the room blue. Now you have got a blue room. So the instruction, what happens here? What we need to understand here is that there was an idea in the mind of the office manager. Okay, he tried to translate that into the mind. That's what we call the communication to the contractor. But there should have been a few questions, feedback as well. Okay, maybe the instruction was not clear. Okay, basically, or the office manager assumed that when I ask someone to paint my room blue, he shouldn't be painting the ceiling blue. Ceiling can't be blue. Okay, so is this one an assumption? In project management, we don't assume, we ask questions. As a contractor, I should have asked, okay, you're telling me to paint the room blue. Is the ceiling maybe concern as well? Okay, so ask question, clarify with the office manager or your client or stakeholder, clarify. So ask question to check understanding about whether you are going to check whether the instruction has been cleared. We all have different ways by which we interpret things. Okay, just be careful about that. But the ceiling is oppressive. Ceiling should never be the same color as the wall. This is an assumption. Okay, and idée reçue de la part du office manager. They should always be a lighter color. So he assumed that. Then the contractor says, you asked me for a blue room. You're lucky I didn't paint the floor blue as well. Okay, he could have painted the flow as well. Who's going to lose? A contractor, maybe he will need to repaint now the ceiling, maybe of a lighter color. Okay, so it is like a miscommunication, but who is at fault? We don't know. So how can we eliminate this from happening? We need to ask questions. We need to ascertain that requirements are clearly understood. Same for your project, final year project. You're discussing with your supervisor, get things clear. What are the aims of my project? Do I need to do software only, or do I need to do the hardware? What are your expectations in terms of the hardware for me to get an A+ in my final year project? Do I need to make the robot move in one dimension, 2 planes? Okay, do I move forward, backward? I don't know. Clarify all these things. Okay, get correct wordings. Okay, like I say, dimensions. So what are dimensions? It can be length, it can be depth, it can be maybe height. So clarify all these things early in the project. Group, so how can we clarify that? Okay, how are we going to collect requirement? A few technique, brainstorming. Okay, we won't be having time to go deeply into it. So I'm just highlighting it, mentioning it here. It's going to take us much more time. So brainstorming, nominal group technique, idea or mind mapping. We introduced mind mapping earlier on in another training which we did. So it's just a way for our mind to see things, how our mind understand things. So we put it on paper. Then from there we can start maybe discussing and so on. Affinity diagram. Okay, so we just ask a question. Okay, and so the example which I did in my class was, how can we save water? Okay, we have had some issues, maybe not save water as such, but to have a more, like as the minister said, 24/7 we have water in our home. I want to do that. What are your ideas? How to come up? So then the student, each and every one on their own, okay, we need to replace the pipes. We need to have more reservoir. We need to maybe to inform people to use, to teach them to use water judiciously. Okay, maybe rainwater harvesting. So each and everyone coming with their ideas, and we put that on stick on notes, we put it on the whiteboard, then we start grouping. This is what we call affinity diagram. It's a powerful maybe method which can be grouped then with brainstorming. Okay, and this is like, as I usually say, this is another training in itself, how to correctly get these requirements from people. Now, when we have got these main requirements, what do we need to do? We need to decompose these requirements, what we call a WBS, work breakdown structure. Okay, it's a technical term which we use in project management. I'm introducing it here, work breakdown structure. So it's dividing and subdividing the project scope and project deliverables into smaller, more manageable parts. So let's say you had to construct a house. Okay, we need to now, okay, this is a house, we have the prototype ahead of us. The client has approved this prototype. This is what I want. This is my dream house. Okay, after several attempts, we have been able to get a prototype that the client has approved. Now we need to know where to start. We are going to decompose. Remember, again, I'm referring to previous project and previous training. We talk about, we have a big project. You have a big goal in life. How do you manage that? It's too big for you to eat. Okay, we are going to break that into small, manageable parts. We call that the Swiss cheese technique. Those who are there, you can remember Swiss cheese technique. So we can't eat a big chunk of cheese like that. We need to slice it into smaller parts. Then we can eat it easier. We can eat half of it or the whole chunk of cheese much easier. Same for project. We are going to decompose that into small, manageable parts. Or if those who don't like cheese, we have another term for that, which we call the salami technique. These are true techniques, not like I'm inventing that, because the salami technique, just like a whole chunk of salami, you can't just eat that like that. You need to slice it into smaller parts, then you will be able to eat that. So this is what we are going to do in WBS decomposition. So we are going to have work package. This is a technical term. So this is the lowest level that we are going to do. We are going to decompose the bigger project. We are going to break that into smaller parts which can be managed. Okay, basically it is said to be within 8 hours, we can do that. 8 to 80 hours, we can complete this part of the work. So what is it? A work breakdown structure defines all the things a project needs to accomplish organized into multiple levels and displayed graphically. So we are going to break that, but it's not going to be like haphazardly. We have a systematic way of breaking the project into smaller parts. Let's have a look. This is what we call a hierarchy. For those who have not seen it, this is what a hierarchy looks like. So we have children underneath, we have the main parent, which we call the manager. This is like a cartoon that you are seeing, okay? But this is how the WBS is going to look like. So WBS is a hierarchical in nature, okay? Each child level exists in a hierarchical structure. So we have parent, we have child, we have grandchild, and so on. Let's have a look. The definition is highly technical, but let's have a look. I understood that we were going to plan a party for today, so I've inserted the wedding party WBS. Actually, I use that for when I'm going to invite people at my home. I'm going to hold maybe a birthday party. You can use that. Okay, it's going to be cumbersome, maybe at the beginning, maybe the first time. Then it is a working document. You can use that. You can use that repeatedly. So a wedding party, we break that. What do we need in a wedding party? Refreshment. So these are the big, maybe ideas, big sectors. Refreshment. We need guests. We can't have a wedding party unless in COVID only 5 people. We need to have guests. We need to have supervision, furniture. Where are we going to sit? Reception. Okay, this is an example. You can work on that. And I know our types of wedding are much more elaborated. So in terms of refreshment, we need to have planning, budget, menu, caterer. In terms of list, we need of guests, we need to have a list. Okay, maybe to get a feedback who is attending and who is not, seating, name tags, and so on. So we are decomposing this into smaller parts. Okay, so we start, let's say for a house. Okay, let's put house there. Maybe it's going to be construct civil works. It can be electrical works, plumbing works, maybe backyard, okay, or boundary wall, things like that. Maybe now in electrical works, we're going to decompose that further into wiring, into maybe electrical installation. You need to buy trunking, socket, switch, and so on. So you decompose. So it's a structured way of decomposing these things. And at the end, you're going to have what we call, what you're seeing is a WBS, work breakdown structure. It may be cumbersome at first, but as soon as you do that, you can use that over and over again. You can improve, definitely. There may be mistakes, there may be things we have forgotten. Then we can improve on that as we proceed, maybe in the next project also. I use this one for when I'm going to plan to go abroad. I have one list like this, and I can do my luggage within like 1 hour or 2 hours maximum, because I have it. Clothes, maybe medicine, and maybe snacks which I'm going to take. Everything is listed. I just go tack, tack, tack. I just finish my luggage, and I don't forget. This is so important. Maybe last time when I went to South Africa for a conference, I forgot. I brought my shaving cream. I didn't bring the shaver. Okay, so I put it in my list. I took it for granted because when I'm going to get my things from the bathroom, I'm going to collect this, but I forgot the shaver. And it was in a conference once in the mountains. There was no shop, no shopping center nearby. So I had another look for this conference. Okay, so we have had a look at number 1, stakeholder. Number 2, getting the requirements. Now we have everything. Okay, we have the requirement. Now let's work on the time. How much time is it going to take us? The time or schedule management. Remember, we had in the WBS, the lowest element, that what we have, maybe the chair, is going to be a work package. We are going to decompose that further now. Okay, because let's call that a chair. Okay, we need to have a chair for people to sit in our wedding. I don't know whose wedding it is. I was being told to plan a wedding. So we need to have a chair. Now, how about the chair? We need someone to get the chair from the one who is lending it. We need to have a transport for bringing the chair. Maybe we need to have seat covers for that. We need someone to install the chair in a specific configuration. So these are activities which are related to one work package. So you see how we have decomposed that into activities nowadays. Usually the work package, it is given as a noun. Okay. Now in time management, we decompose that further into verbs, things that people need to do. Okay, we decompose, so we have different activities. Okay, this is a sequence. Now we need to sequence activities. We can't install the chairs in a specific setup, but the chairs are not here. So we have a sequence that we need to obey. We need some are logical, some are preferred. Okay, so we need to know all about that. So we need to sequence the activities, identify and document relationship among activities. So this one should come forward, then we are going to do that, and so on. So this is what we call sequencing. At times there are some, if you're in civil engineering, if you have just maybe concreted the floor or the ceiling, okay, you have just poured concrete, you need to have a waiting time. You can't just start building on that. So you have a waiting time. So these will form part of the sequencing activities. Okay, let's say for your printing, binding, you can't bind the document with blank pages, then you're going to print. So this is like, I'm taking it from a silly perspective, but this is what I mean by sequencing of activities. It defines a logical sequence of work to obtain the greatest efficiency given all project constraints. Let's take the example of you're planning for the wedding, so biryani. So let's consider what comes if you know how to prepare a good plate of biryani or a dish of biryani. So you have to, you can't like put your rice on fire, okay, to start cooking. Then you say, okay, I think I should have marinated the chicken, isn't it? Okay. Oh, I should have maybe get my spices ready, mix and so on. All the potatoes needs to be peeled and prepared, maybe put it in some specific container with colors and so on. Okay. It's only then that I think we do need a salad as well. It's not like this. So we need to sequence. We can't like put the rice on fire and then we are going to look for the chicken. We are going to see what we are going to do. So this is a sequencing of the activities. Okay. Basically, it's not going to look like the plate of biryani. It's going to look like this. You have a start, you have an end, remember project, definition, and then you have a set of activities or some activities now which you can see can proceed in parallel. Okay. It's not like you need to complete the dish of biryani, okay, leave it on fire, then you can start working on the salad. Okay. You can do that in parallel. You can have another team doing maybe peeling off the cucumber, maybe I don't know which salad you're going to make, getting the salad ready. So these can be done in parallel. And then from this, you're going to define, you're going to know what is the time. We're going to see how we estimate time. This activity one may be taking 2 hours, activity number 2, 1 hour. Then you add the activities in sequence, what you have on the top row. I'm just going to annotate it here. You're going to add these activities. Let's say this is 8 hours. This one, okay, cucumber is going to take 2 hours. So we are going to identify which is the set of critical activities. Those activities, if we delay any activity, maybe this one, if we delay this one, this is going to change. It's going to go to 9 hours. Our guests are going to cry because they're not getting their biryani on time. But here, let's say we delay maybe peeling the cucumber. You're taking 2 hours more. Okay, Kalasairun is not here, so it's going to be 4 hours. But then it is not going to affect because we have like what we call a delay, which is acceptable because we are going to complete within, the biryani is going to be ready within 8 hours. So we have some, what we call in Creole, a battement, okay, which have some slack in project management terms. So we are going to identify the critical activities. These activities, which if we delay any of these, is going to affect the completion time of our project. Let's proceed from there. Okay, so we mentioned about slack or float. We can do that. So amount of time and activity can be delayed without delaying the entire project. So for us to be able to see that, we need to draw this diagram, which we call a network diagram. And then we are going to identify parallel paths. Okay, and we are going to then identify which are the critical activities and which are not. Okay, if maybe due to it's raining, okay, or one activity in the critical path have been delayed, you can pick up labor or what we call resources from the non-critical activities. You can shift over there, okay, just to make up for the delay, because you know these are not critical activities. You can shift some maybe personnel or logistics from here toward the critical path. So we are talking about biryani, but this is the same principle which is going to come, which is going to be applied for bigger projects as well. Okay, now we have been talking about time management, fast tracking. If we need to finish on time quicker, so look at the critical path and decide which activities can be done in parallel. So at times there are some preferred activities that we need to complete that before we can start that. This is preferred. But at times when we have some limit in terms of time, we can do that in parallel as well. Okay, so this is what we call fast tracking. This is a technical term, and you can read a bit more about that. I won't have time to go more on that. We can even do fast tracking. Okay, this is what we just mentioned. Okay, we can just, instead of doing that sequentially, we do them slightly in parallel. This one is not completed yet, but we have already started maybe the activity coming after that. Or we can have activity crashing. Okay, we decrease the time allocated. Maybe if it was going to take 6 hours, as we mentioned, or 8 hours, we can do that in 6 hours. But what can we do? We can add more people. It's not always true. We have law of diminishing return, but we can add, let's say, 1 or 2 people to help. Okay, or we can ask people to do overtime. If we had a working day of 8 hours, we can ask more people to do that. So these are ways by which we can squeeze the schedule. At times, it's not always true. Okay, this is what we call crushing. We add people, add 1 more people. Instead of 4 weeks, we can do that in 3 weeks. Can we build a house in less than 4 days? Okay, actually, I use this slide when I'm having people in the class, but let's cover that quickly. Okay, this type of house you see, but which type of house? It may be one of cardboard or things like that. This is the one in the picture that you are seeing. Can we build a house in 4 days? Okay, actually, they managed to build it in 3 hours, 45 minutes, less than 4 hours. Okay, so what does it? It was a complete house, walls, panels, wooden floor, ceiling, decking, doors, windows, toilet, plumbing, everything, even the lawn and free trees. Avec cela code maintenant sector, letterbox as well. Okay, so how they have been able to do that? It was about the resources. They had 150 volunteers people, okay, and so much of training, 14 months of planning, okay, to be able to realize that. So it can be done, but not always. You can't generalize, okay? Just like that. You can't have a project manager, someone who thinks that 9 pregnant women can create a baby in 1 month. So it doesn't work that way. We can increase resources, yes, to complete it on time, but some project we can't do more. Okay, there are some projects which will need to take its time. This is at times what the project manager needs to be able to show, to demonstrate. Tools now, how do we show that? How do we have had the network diagram, which we introduced before? Remember the critical path and so on. We can have Gantt chart as well. Oh, we had our friend here, Henry Gantt, okay, who invented that. Actually, there is a small fight. Actually, he was not the first one who discovered that. There was someone else who did that, but actually it was attributed to him. So his name, Henry Gantt, Gantt chart. So it's going to show us which activities coming first, which activities coming second, or it can be in terms of activity or a group. Okay, in our WBS, remember the main group. Else is going to be, if we're going to use a network diagram, remember the 2 paths, biryani and salad. This is a network diagram. A Gantt chart is going to show that in terms of the parent, not the activities, but the parent. Okay, the big chunk, you can see which one is overlapping and so on. It is a good way, okay, a pictorial way, a visual way of seeing how the project, what is the plan and how the project is progressing. Here we are today. Are we on track? Are we behind schedule? What is coming next? So it's a good way of presenting the values. You have also the milestone chart. It is actually management. They don't want to have so much of information at times. They want to have one-step view maybe of a milestone chart. Okay, when we are talking about building a house, quand beaucoup le dalle, this is a milestone. Quand nous pose 3 rangs de blocs, tu peux intéresser. Okay, quand beaucoup le dalle, quand beaucoup la, these are milestones. When are we going to have specific achievement? These are called milestones. Oops, I think I got disconnected. Let me just share. Okay, I think you can see me again. I'm sharing the screen. Small technical problem with MIT. Let's go on to presentation mode. Okay, so we're saying when we are meeting in a group of people, we need to go through a process. We have what we call the forming, storming, knowing, performing, adjourning. Okay, so you need to work on, remember the skills that the project manager needs to have. I'm just taking the chat if everything is okay. Okay, yeah. Okay, we need to know how we form a team. People, they have different ways. They don't like when they have someone new joining the team. They not like it. So this is a system that you should be using. So go through that, learn about it, norming. So it's not like just like a new team. That's why before starting a new season, they are going to play a few matches here and there, maybe in Dubai, in China, and so on. It's for marketing, yes, but it's just to get the team working together. Okay, pre-season matches and so on. It's new players getting in. It's a new team being formed. So these are ways by which you can get them performing and then adjourning. So we have a few graphs for that. Maybe we won't have time to go through all these. Okay, important. Never start a project unless all resources are available. Okay, when you start your project, make sure that you have your architect, you have your electrical engineer, you have your civil engineer, you have all your different people which are important to the project readily available. It's not at the necessary time that you're going to cross the bridge. So this is an important lesson. Then we have synergy. This is the role of forming a team. We have 1 + 1 is equal to 3 is what we call synergy. Okay, when we are having maybe teams working, people may be working. It's not at times working synchronously and so on. Okay, but when we have a good performing team, then we can have synergy. We have more output. Quick story, a horse can pull a cart of 5 tons. If we put 2 horses, mathematically, it makes 10 tons. But in reality, it doesn't make 10 tons. They can pull a cart of 14 tons. Now, if these 2 horses, they have been working in teams, they know each other, they can pull up to 16 tons. Okay, so what we call the synergy. Let's move forward. Cost management now. We have, remember, in terms of cost, it's not only, oops, let me just, okay. When we are talking about cost, it's not only the cost of the item. It's about the future cost. There's different ways of looking at it. Okay, we can call it the direct cost, the indirect cost, but we call it the life cycle cost. In some other terms, we call it the from cradle to grave cost. Cradle, small baby in their bear cradle, and then to grave, the grave. So all the costs that happens during the lifetime of the project needs to be accounted for in some specific situation. At times they're operation costs, but when deciding, you need to take into consideration these costs as well. Okay, life cycle costing, which you need to consider in terms of costs. And then we have different ways. I'm just going to cover these quickly. 3 ways, basically, how to estimate costs. Okay, you can have what we call parametric estimation, as we call in Creole, per mètre carré, per feet, square feet. Okay, when you're looking for a contractor to build your house, what is your per square feet rate? 700 rupees. You multiply by what you have in your plan, you have an idea about how much it's going to cost. So it's a rough idea. It's not going to be exactly this amount. This is what we call parametric estimation. We use it every day, but we have it in project management as well. Then we have bottom-up estimating. Remember, we have our WBS. Okay, all the components there. We even have the activities that we have decomposed in time. Let's say for chair, we know how much the location of the chair, that is when we are borrowing, how much we need to pay, how much the transport is going to cost us, how much maybe someone who's going to install it with the seat covers and so on is going to take us. So we have the different activities. We just need to get the quotes for these different things. Then we know chair is going to cost this much. Biryani is going to cost this much. So we aggregate that. So what we call bottom up we start from the bottom. Now we have all the activities, the WBS. From the WBS, we go up, and then we can know how much is our wedding going to cost us. That's what we call bottom-up estimating. Okay. Okay, I think we need to include a contingency reserve as well. This is management practice. If it is like 9,000 rupees, we are going to say it's going to cost us 10,000 rupees or so. Okay. 3-point estimating, at times we don't have one specific value. It can be when it is maybe it's a good period, good season is going to cost us 300 rupees. It's a bad season, it's going to cost us 900 rupees. Average maybe 400 rupees. So you can have a moving average, okay, what we call a weighted average method of calculating that. I can make this slide available to you. You can read what is here. So we are going to use a weighted average method to calculate the estimation. At times, the estimation is not pinpoint. Okay, we are at planning stage, maybe a chair, and l'époque où on a beaucoup moyens, it can cost very high because the demand is high. Okay, but in low demand areas, period, the cost can be low. So if you're planning your wedding for 2 years time, you don't know when it is going to be held, you can use 3-point estimating to get a good idea. Definitely these estimates, they are going to have some variations. Okay, some percentage plus minus in between. So the more as the project is proceeding, we are going to refine our cost estimation. We are going to get to definitive. So it's going to be plus minus when we know we have got an official quote for the chair, official quote from the bandari who's going to cook our biryani. So all official, now we can have a definitive costing. But at the beginning, what we call a ballpark order of estimate, I'm planning my wedding. How much money will I have? Okay, you can just work on Kalasairun, his son, Descendimoun, it costs maybe 5,000 rupees per person per commune arrivée. You can use these values to multiply parametric estimation. Okay. Now let's come to quality. If it just take my time, we have some 15 minutes. Maybe we are going to overlap over that. Okay, we said that quality is linked with fitness for use. So a product can be used as it was intended. Okay, there is a difference between quality and grade. They're not the same. Okay, quality is a degree to which a set of inherent characteristics fulfill requirements. So we have a set of requirements. Okay, remember, collect requirement, scope. How is the characteristic of the what product we have produced meeting these requirements? This is quality. Grade is attributed to maybe different other things. Okay. We mentioned before that it's a continuous improvement. In projects as well, we learn from our mistake, even in quality. Interesting is quality that it is, we have part of the techniques which can be applied to quality, which can be applied to project, they can be applied to operations. Remember at the beginning, we said these are two main things, projects and then operations, but quality is a common denominator. You can apply this technique to operations as well. So every time in terms of quality, we find some mistake, we improve. So we act, we call that PDCA. Let me just put the code here. We plan something, we do, we check, and then we act. If there's maybe ameliorations, amendment to be done, we do that. Then we do plan, do check, apply, do check. So that we are continuously improving. Okay, quality as well in terms of cost, we have part of it which is visible to us, but there's a big chunk. Okay, like I think 90% of the cost is not seen of poor quality. We're speaking about poor quality, not the cost of the object, but cost of poor quality. Maybe what we see, maybe if the wall has not been erected properly, it is like not as should have been. Okay, we need to break the wall, use new materials, block, concrete, cement, and so on to do the wall again. So this is rework. So we can see these costs. But let's say for a product you have purchased, let's say you have bought your television. Okay, after 2 days, a 70-inch TV, after 2 days is break down. They told you, okay, bring it, we are going to check. It's 1 month already, they have not given you a new one, they are still under repairs, and so on. So are you going to buy your television set at the same place next time? So no. So it is rework, people are working on it, yes, you can see, but then you have people are not going to come to you. Okay, this is a hidden part, loyalty, customer loyalty, long cycle time, excessive inventory. If you're selling a product which frequently breaks down, you need to have components in stock. So these are unseen, maybe indirect costs of poor quality. We have 7 quality tools and techniques, okay, which I'm just going to rush through that. We have the cause and effect diagram, which we call also the Ishikawa diagram or the fishbone diagram. We have flowchart, commonly used, checklist, Pareto diagram, similar to Pareto principle, but here we have it on a graph, which we can pinpoint what is the 20%. We can know exactly what are the items which are going to contribute to these 20%. Histogram, similar to bar chart, but you can, the width can be changed. We have control charts and then scatter diagram. So if you want to study on quality, go through these 7, like it's the most common types of, I think they come from what we call the gurus, the quality gurus. Okay, they have come up with these 7 basic but fundamentals quality tools and technique. This is the Ishikawa diagram. Okay, if you want to look to find the root cause of problems, you can use the Ishikawa diagram or the fishbone diagram. This is how it works. Okay, and it can be the same technique which is used by doctors. If you're having maybe fever, they're going to ask you specific questions to eliminate. Maybe time is not the issue, machine not the issue, method not the issue. They are going to find the root cause of your problem. Powerful method. Since we are in quality, let's introduce Six Sigma. What is Six Sigma? At times, if it is more appropriate when we are working in operations, but for operations to be able to do that, we need to be able to have a project which is able to produce a machinery or a line of equipment which are able to produce least defect. Least defect means 3.4 defects per million opportunity. If you are producing 1 million t-shirts, only 3.4 should have defects. Okay, it's what we call Six Sigma approach. Okay, we have spoke about the scope, time, and cost, which we call the quality triangle. Okay, the main, this is a core of project management. Scope, requirement, we have time and cost. In between, we have quality. So at times, if we are changing scope, so if we are changing requirement, cost definitely is going to change. If cost is not changing, time will change. Okay, if you say, okay, I'm not going to change the cost, but you will need to give me more time. So changing one is going to affect most probably the other 2 as well. Okay, if you're looking for cheap, good and fast product, it happens only in your dreams. You can't have all. Cheap, good and fast, you can't have it. You always need to have, if you want fast and good, you will need to pay. It's not going to be cheap, it's going to be expensive. Okay, so we don't have like a common intersection for all these. Number 7, okay, in communication, interesting part. The most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said. Because remember, we said about the requirements, we need to look for seek the correct requirements from our client. We need to communicate. The client is not a professional in communication, most likely, but us as project managers, as collectors of requirements, we need to be able, we can have feedback questionnaire, different ways by which we can collect requirements. Remember, we talk about brainstorming, affinity diagram, and so on. We have a set of tools and techniques which we can use to collect requirements properly. Reasons for project failure, we have seen 90% is due to communication problems. This is from PMI as well. We have poor requirement definition, but how poor requirement definition? It is a problem of communication as well. Inadequate risk management, okay, we are going to see. Poor scope control, things are coming up, okay, we are adding new things. This could have been maybe taken care of if we had identified the requirements correctly, lack of qualified resource and so on. So we see that 90% of project failure is attributed to communication problems. That's why it is so important in project management. There are different criteria, different things for communication. Communication, project information in a timely manner, okay? Giving the information, information in a timely manner at the correct time, not after 3 days. Okay, can we mettre le journal? Okay, in a timely manner. Collecting, distributing, and storing project information. How are you storing the information? So important as well. Generating the right level of information for all customers. There are some information in the project which are going to be confidential. You can't just give it to each and every one, to all stakeholders. We said that stakeholder needs to be informed. Yes, but not all information you're going to give to the stakeholders. There's some information you need to be able to judge, to have a judgment. You're going to filter which information you're going to give to your customers or stakeholders. Communication management is providing the right information to the correct maybe people at the right time. Okay, let's move. Different facets of communication, stakeholder communication requirement, information to be, which format are you going to use? Is it going to be email? Is it going to be video interventions on the MBC, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn? So a glossary of common terminology terms. It depends when you're studying project management in more details. You can come to that. Suggestment method of technologies for conveying. You can be using maybe Facebook, but your audience is maybe people are above 70 years old. How come? Is there not most likely, or there's only small percentage of people who are going to access Facebook in this age group? So you need to be able to adapt your communication with the correct format of people. Okay, frequency, who will receive the information, and so on. We have the sender-receiver model. Basically, we have the sender, we have the receiver. This is a one-way flow of information. For us to be able to check understanding, to check acknowledgement, we need to have a feedback loop as well. Okay, because we have noise or interference in between. It's not like noise that maybe it's like a sound which is making the noise. It may be our own way of decoding. Okay, if I say red, there are many definitions of red. Okay, if I say a knife, he took a knife. So it can be like a small knife, a bigger knife, so many interpretation of knife. So we need to be able to decode. So you can ask the question, what type of knife, which color? Okay, is it like blunt or is it sharp? These can couple up to be able to understand exactly what was the intended message. For boys, okay, at times you have, if you're having two boys, you have only one communication channel. Okay, the more people you add in the team, the more communication channel, the more complicated it's going to be. So when you're having boys in project, it's going to be one channel of communication, but when you're having girls, it's slightly more complicated. Okay, you have much more channel of communication, the funny side of the story. Okay, dimensions of communication, it can take so many different dimensions, formal or written. Okay, a letter, a formal letter signed. It can be informal in terms of written notes, email. Email, you need to be cautious. In some projects, in some maybe cultures, it is regarded as formal. Nowadays, I think in most it is regarded as formal. It can be memos. These are informal ways of communicating. Formal verbal speeches. A presentation is a formal. You are making a presentation to the board. It can be informal verbal. Informal meeting, you're meeting your friend maybe in the corridor. You're just having a chat. You're sharing information. So this is going to be informal verbal. External or internal, it can be to your customer, to stakeholders, or it can be within the project team. Horizontal, to your friend, to your peer, or it can be vertical, up to your manager, or down to people working with you. So different facets, different dimensions of communication. Okay, maybe I will skip this question. I won't have time for this one. Composition of oral communication. We mentioned about Albert Mehrabian. More is in terms of body language. Okay, 55% in terms of facial expression, body language, which you are going to see. 38% is going to be the tonality. Okay, what is the tone, what is the pitch you are taking to speak. Remember, the project manager, he needs to have leadership and communication skills. He needs to be able to be a master of all these. Master means he's always learning. We all start from somewhere and then we keep on learning. So this is the communication model, which is mostly adapted. Important note now, we say that 90% of success failures are attributed to communication problems. It is also true that 90% of a project manager's job is communication. So 90% of the time, effort, energy of the project manager should be devoted to communication. It's not only about writing. Remember, we have verbal, non-verbal, different facets of communication. He needs to be able, his body language as well is a communication. He's attending a site, even though he's not speaking to each and every one. So where he works, he's going to motivate people. He's going to show encouragement to people. He's going to greet people Nothing related to the project, just greeting, sharing a few jokes. He's going to motivate people to work more. So 90% of his job is communication. How to tell bad news? You can read that. Okay, you start. This is like a scenario which has you need to communicate at the right time. We mentioned that, but at time we need to know how to communicate that. Okay, I won't go through this story, but this girl, she told a story about all the bad things which has been happening, and then afterward, she's just putting it in perspective. Okay, that she's not pregnant, she's not getting married and so on, but she's just got a D in chemistry. So she's writing a letter to his parent and grandparent and so on. I can share that with you. Okay, we are moving forward with risk management now. In terms of risk, most of the time we tend to be reactive. When the thing happened, when the breach has come, we need to cross it. Where do we go? How do we proceed? This is reactive. But what we learn in project management is that we need to be proactive. We need to plan for risk. We need to try to think what are the risks which can happen. How can we do that? Remember, we have our stakeholders. We have our team, yes, but we can use our pool of stakeholders, those people who have been doing it, okay, or they are part of the equation. They can give us information. They're the one who may be causing the problem as well. So we tackle that right from the beginning. Okay, project risk is proactive. Risk identity, we need to identify risk. This is the first step. Identify risk and iterative process. So at the beginning of the project, at the planning stage, we are going to identify risk. It's not like a fully completed activity. During the project life cycle, again, we are going to identify, it's an ongoing process. Every meeting, we are going to ask people, maybe at the last the last item is the agenda, what are the new risks have you identified? Okay, have you identified new risks? So you're going to ask this question. So it's an ongoing process. Okay, these people are going to help you in the process, identifying risk. Then we need to analyze the risk. Okay, we are not going all risk. So one risk can be a meteorite. Meteorite is going to crash onto the earth. This is a risk. It's going to affect our project of building our house or having our wedding. Okay, we're sticking to the wedding. Okay, it can be like a meteorite coming and crashing in Mauritius. It's going to pull everything down. But what is the probability? The impact is high. If this happens, the impact is high, it's huge. But what is the probability of it happening? So we need to have a probability and impact matrix to be able to identify which risks written here, focusing on high priority risk only. So we have a 2x2 matrix, impact on one side, occurrence, probability of occurrence there. We are going to focus mostly on high impact, high occurrence. We are going to use, again, Pareto principle. Okay. One method which we use, one technique is a top 10 risk tracking. Okay. We identify the top 10 risks from our matrix, which I have just described. The first quadrant where we have top impact, at the highest impact and highest probability of occurrence. We focus on these top 10 risks. Okay. It's a qualitative risk. So we identify that and it is updated in regular meeting. Okay. And now we have identified the risk. We're not going to say, okay, we identify it and that's it. No, we need to plan. If this happens, this is a high probability and high impact of happening, of occurring. We need to plan for if these risks happen. Okay, we have the risk response. So let me just go to the risks. Okay, we can avoid the risk. We eliminate it. Okay, if maybe you are having some scaffolding, we can remove the scaffolding or we use a new type, which we avoid the risk of having like a maybe makeshift or a temporary way of, not a professional, maybe scaffolding to paint a building. Risk transference, mostly like we look for an insurance. We can, a risk which can happen when we are driving a car, we can meet with an accident. So risk transference, we transfer this cost. Okay, it is a risk, we can damage our own car or a third party car or property. So we transfer this risk to the insurance company. We pay him, we transfer the risk to him. If anything happens, he's going to take over. Risk mitigation, we try to decrease the impact. Okay, the impact was high. Then we look for things which we can do to decrease the impact. Then we accept that there's something which we can't do anything. Okay, if it comes, it comes. Okay, if it is like, maybe we have going to have COVID is going to strike again, third wave, we can't do anything. It's acceptance of the risk. Okay, so these are negative risks. This is what we are used to. We say risk has a negative connotation in our language, but we can have positive risk as well. Okay, so if we are having positive risk, which we call opportunities, so we can exploit this risk. If, well, let's say we know that there's a risk that, or let's call that an opportunity, that the dollar can go up, the price, the transfer rate for exchange rate for the dollar can go up. Let's buy a few USD. Okay, and then maybe in 2 months time we are going to sell that. So we exploit this opportunity that we are having. We can share, just like we are going to share it with the insurance company. We can share an opportunity as well, a positive risk. We can share that as well. We can enhance. We can increase our probability of it happening. Okay, the impact, and we can accept it. Just like for negative risk, we just have to, if it comes, it comes, else just too bad. Okay. Now the risk response plan. We need to plan for the risk, and we have a fallback plan. Okay, so it is an accepted risk, so we have so it can be developed for implementing if the selected strategy turns out not to be fully effective. So let's say we are planning for maybe a risk transference also, so this is not working. So we have a fallback position. We have a plan B or plan C, plan D, which can happen depending on the type of risk. We're not going to do that for all the risks which are happening. For those who are high impact, high probability of occurrence. Secondary risk is when we are implementing the risk response, we have a step which we have identified the risk, we have planned for the risk response, but while doing this, by implementing this response, is going to create another risk. This is what we call secondary risk. Contingency reserve, remember, in terms of cost or time as well, we have got, let's say, 8 days, let's put that 10 days, let's put that 10 days to be fair, en gros, comme on dit. Or cost 9,000 rupees, we put it 10,000. This is contingency. We have residual risk. Okay, after we have implemented the risk response, there's going to be like a small part which is going to remain. And then we have a workaround. When things are not working as it is, we can always have like, it can be like a plan B, or we just look for a workaround. This short video, I think you can see it. How this little boy is going to use a plan, risk planning. So right now he has identified the risk. Okay, he starts planning for the risk. This is his risk response, his planning. Here he goes safely. He has planned it correctly, identified the risk, plan it, and then there's a small risk when he's going down, a small risk, but it is manageable for him. Okay, let's proceed to the next slide. Quickly on procurement. Okay, nine knowledge areas. We need, I'm just going to cover one aspect of it, make or buy. When do we make? To do it at home or at our side, or do we go for buy? We buy it. Okay. Make or buy analysis. There's outsourcing and in-house. I'm just going to, okay, let's take a look at, we need to, Sunday morning, we want to eat gâteau piment. Okay, we said that gâteau piment is 250 rupees each. You have only 2 persons. You have just got married, you have 2 persons at home. Okay, you're going to eat at most, let's say 4 gâteau piments. Okay, it's going to be 10 rupees. Or are you going to buy 10 rupees of gâteau piment, or are you going to bake it yourself, to cook it yourself? Most likely you're going to buy it because the cost of producing it at home is going to be much higher than 10 rupees. But let's say you have a bigger family, you have been married, you have been into an extended family. Belle-sœur, beau-frère, tati, tata, tout ça dans la 35 du monde dans la casa. So you can't, basically, it's going to be more effective for you cost-wise to cook it at home, to bake it at home. Okay, this is what you call it buy or you can borrow it. So a short example for you here. I think you can work this out: to lease it or to buy it. These are all the types of questions which come up when we are doing procurement. Only one aspect of procurement which I've just seen, but this part of Gatogma is important to you to know whether you're going to buy or you're going to make it at home. At times it's not good. It's a good thing to just get the best parts from each and every part of the world. This is what Boeing actually tried. Okay, and they tried to get there for the 787, the different parts from all about the best suppliers across the world. They wanted the wing, they went for Nagoya in Japan. For the engine, it was in CA. For the fuselage, it was in Italy. So they got the best manufacturer from all around the world to manufacture different components for the plane. So it started in 2013. So they were enthusiastic about it. Okay, it was a way for them to get the best and to be in terms of cost, the lowest cost. Okay, 135 sites by 50 subcontractors. They were supposed to be decreasing the completion time from 6 to 4 years and development costs from 10 billion to 6 billion. What actually turns out is that you can't, this is what happens when you look, it's too much of outsourcing. Okay, just like if you are having your wedding, you are outsourcing chair to one contractor, he's the best and so on. You are outsourcing maybe the decoration to another one, outsourcing meals to this one. So if you have 10 contractors or 15 contractors working for your wedding, it's not going to work out perfectly. There are going to be clashes, things are not going to be, this is not the size of chair. I have this seat cover, but this does not fit your chair. So it's going to have some misunderstanding, confusion, and so on. So it's not always a good idea to just contract out everything or contract out to the best. So you need to be able to know which maybe company or group of companies you're going to see. Okay, page not found. I think we have reached the end. So important, it's not finished yet. It's about the historical information. I told you beginning, we make mistakes. We need to document things we have done correctly, things we need to improve on. We need to put all that well documented. We need to keep that in PMO. It's not Prime Minister's office because of the project management office. Okay, usually in huge firms, in big firms, we have that for recording, keeping records of all things which have happened in project management. Nowadays, we have it in soft copy as well. And don't forget, as soon as the project is over, documentation is over, you have taken your lessons learned, you need to party. That was it from me. Sorry, I think I've crossed the time limit by a few minutes, but hopefully we have been able to cover the main parts of the 9 main parts of project management. Remember, the 10 is about the integration of all that together. And it's only like bits and pieces, but I think I've chosen the most important part to give you an idea. Remember, the idea was to give an essence of project management. It's not the whole meal. Maybe you have got one takeaway or half takeaway filled with your biryani or project management, but I've done my best to give you as much as I can within a short amount of time. I'm going to hand over to maybe the organizer. Maybe if you have some questions, we can take up some questions at this point in time. Mr. Subrati, any questions on your side?
Let me check. There's someone asking to send the presentation by email. Yes, so we can.
I think they have all registered. I'm going to PDF it and send it to you by mail.
Okay.
Send it to them, yeah.
Yes, we can email them.
Any more questions, queries? Anyway, you
No.
have my email address here. You have my contact details. You need more information, maybe on specific knowledge areas. You can just let me know. I can share the information with you. I have a few books as well, and you can liaise with me directly. Good.
Good.
So let me thank you for.
There's a question.
Yes.
Can you please tell us about the question and how to correct answer them in interview for PM?
For interviews for project management. Okay, so
Yes.
basically you need to identify what are the main causes of problems in project. We have identified a few. First one is about communication, which people in project don't know themselves. Okay, they have not been having a formal education in project. Okay, so they will talk to you about being maybe over budget, maybe running over time, how to squeeze time. So we have discussed about clashing and then going in parallel. Okay, in parallel or putting more labor. These are two ways by which you can increase maybe or decrease the schedule. Or you can, it's more in terms of communication, getting the requirements right from the beginning, and then putting slack as well, because we need to take into consideration that nothing are going to work perfectly. We need to put slack. Okay, that's what we call buffer as well in our schedule, in our costs as well, contingency reserve, to be able to cater for that. And it comes with experience. But in an interview, questions are going to come on cost mainly. Remember the triangle: scope, cost, and time. I remember it in some of STC, which regulates fuel and so on: scope, time, and cost. Most questions are on these, and basically how to get scope, keep it within. Okay, the cost component actually goes up when you have so many what we call scope creep. Maybe the client, I want to have one window here, I want to have maybe another flow here, things like that, which is adding to the project. But that's why it's so important to well collect the requirements at the beginning. You have, okay, we have a window here, right? Accept, the client is going to sign all the requirements. So if there's anything which is being added, a new window, he's going to add cost, he's going to add time to the project. The client needs to be informed, he needs to approve whatever change is being happening. But if you are having projects, include some slack and take care of maybe get to know from those who have been working on projects before. They're going to give you, so you have lots of useful information from people who have been using project management or doing projects in the past, because so many things that we are learning in projects. Okay, so many things which I'm learning, still learning when doing projects. And new projects, that's what's so interesting in project. Any project is something new. Remember, it's a unique product, but we can have good things, maybe lessons learned, which we can share always and apply to the project. But for interviews, it's going to be scope, time, and cost mostly.
I think someone else has a question. Rise Excel Technologies.
Yes, I have a questions. I would like to know if possible to have a time of question and answers, not today. I know it's a bit too late, or another day we can send an invitation. We can have a question and answers. Mr. Ismael, do some questions and we can work together.
Okay, I'm be happy to do that. Or you can, if you have some questions already, you can like centralize it maybe to the IT group that we have, IT on campus here. We can have like a selection of questions, and then we can have another session just to discuss. I maybe not have all the answers.
I would like to discuss.
Okay, yes, you can discuss, but I said if you can set the question, I can prepare. If I have like maybe a slide, I can just put it in front of you. It can be more useful, but I'm be glad to have maybe question and answer session as well. I'm open to that.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
It was very interesting and very clearly.
Thank you for everyone. I'm going to send you, I think the presentation is going to be sent to you. And if it is all, I'm going to maybe thank the organizers. Okay. And for inviting me for a session. I think some are liking the biryani, hopefully, and you can organize your own wedding. Hopefully these are tips and techniques which you can use every day. I've not been able to add more. Okay, maybe if you're having another session, I can give you maybe more tips about how you can include that in everyday life. But it's like, it's a big subject in itself. It's not like things which you can cover within 1.5 hours, but I'm trying to give you maximum from my part.
Okay.
Over to you, Mr. Subrati.
Thank you very much. It's Zuleika who will be doing the conclusion today.
Yes. So Dr. Ismael, I really appreciate the way how you emphasize on communication skills being the major cause of failure. I would like to add something. Communication consists of three parts: a message sent, a message received, and a message understood. People often skip the last part. The girls part, we actually are not that complicated. Mention none to listen, which they never do.
It's another discussion, I think.
But you did really put things into perspective. And I
Uh-huh.
would really like to thank you for this and thank Kala Saibun for her expertise. So thank you so much, everyone.
Okay. I think there's also questions about controlling and monitoring phase, tools and technique. There are so many. Okay, like each part is like a lecture in itself, and each Managerial is a 3-hour lecture. But if you can compile, if you can send a list of questions, maybe important parts where you need more help or more you want me to talk more, we can have another session and we discuss about this important. It's going to be like much more of interaction, and we can spend much more time on that. I'm open to that.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm
Yes.
over. For me, I'm going to hand over to you, Irfan, for you to close the session.
Okay, thank you very much for everyone, and especially Ismael for being with us for the third time since we started to collaborate. Thank you very much for being present for us. The session of today was definitely insightful, and I hope that all the participants has get something from it, and they will be able to apply it in their life as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. See you next time, and all the best. And you can go and eat your biryani now. Bye bye. Take care.
Yes, bye.
Okay. Bye bye. Okay. Bye bye.